Hello students, myself is Parminder Singh from Prab Kirpa classes. Our today's topic is the fundamental unit of life. Firstly, we will explain the full chapter and then we will confirm NCERT questions and other important questions. After going through the course, you will be able to understand why the cell is called the structural and financial unit of life. You will also understand what is cell made up of and what is the structural organization of a cell. Third, if the organization of a cell is destroyed due to some physical or chemical influence, what will happen? Organization of a cell means if the cell is destroyed. Then we will understand what is the difference between unicellular and multicellular organisms. Then what is the shape and size of cells? You will also understand the meaning of division of labor in multicellular organisms. Next, how does these substances move in and out of the cell? Then we will understand the difference between prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. Next, what would happen if the plasma membrane ruptures or breaks down? Next, why plasma membrane is called a selectively permeable membrane? Next, what would happen to the life of a cell if there was no Golgi apparatus? Next, which organelle is known as the powerhouse of the cell and why? Then you will understand the meaning of diffusion and osmosis. Next, what happens when a plant cell is placed in hypertonic solution, hypotonic solution, and isotonic solution? Next, why lysosomes are known as suicide bags of the cell? Then you will understand the meaning of mitosis and meiosis, which are two forms of cell division. Discovery of cell. The cells were discovered by Robert Hooke in 1665. He looked at a slice of cork through a self-designed microscope. You can see here, this is the microscope. He discovered that the cork looked like the structure of a honeycomb. He found that the cork was made of a large number of tiny compartments or boxes, and each box was separated from the other by a wall or partition. He called these tiny compartments or boxes as cells. His observations are recorded in his book Micrographia. You can here see the cell structure of cork, and you can see here the Robert Hooke's microscope. Now we come to the question of what is cell theory. The credit for developing cell theory is usually given to two scientists, Sequan and Schleiden. While Virchow contributed to the cell theory, he is not as credited for his stuff towards it. The three basic components of the cell theory are as under. First, all living organisms are composed of one or more cells. Next, second, the cell is the basic unit of life in all living organisms. And the third basic component is all cells arise from pre-existing cells. Next question is, why cell is called the structural and functional unit of life? Answer, cell is the structural and functional unit of life. The word cell is derived from the Latin word cellula, which means a little room. All living organisms can be classified as unicellular or multicellular. Uni means single cell. In case of unicellular organisms, that is single celled organisms, for example, amoeba, a single cell provides the structure for the body and performs all the functions, that is digestion, excretion, etc., that takes place inside the body of the organism. You might have seen amoeba whose shape may be anything like this, and all the functions of the organism in the amoeba, which is a single celled organism, all the functions such as digestion, excretion, etc., take place in the single cell. This is the single cell. In the case of multicellular organisms, examples of multicellular organisms are plants, animals, and human beings. The number of cells vary from species to species. It has been approximated that the human body contains trillions of cells. In the case of multicellular organisms, cells form the structure of the organism. You can find this is the basic part, cell. A bunch of cells working together form the tissue. A bunch of tissues working together form an organ. A bunch of organs combine to form the organ system, and organ system further combine to form the organism. Cells in multicellular organisms vary in size and shape depending on the function they perform. Some cells in the multicellular organisms are short, some are long. All the size and shape of the cell in any multicellular organism depends upon the function it performs. We will discuss the shape and size of the cells in the coming slides. All the functions that takes place inside the body of the multicellular organisms are performed by the cells. So from this picture you can see that the cells form tissue and tissues form organ, and from the organs form organ system, and the organ systems combine to form the organism. Now the question before us is, what is unicellular organism? Unicellular organism is known as single celled organism. You can see here amoeba and paramecium are the single celled organisms. These are the photographs of these unicellular organisms. It is an organism that consists of a single cell. This means that all life processes such as reproduction, feeding, digestion, excretion occur in one cell. Some examples of unicellular organisms are bacteria, protozoa, amoeba, unicellular fungi, yeast, etc. Now there is an explanation. Amoeba has no definite shape. It keeps on changing its shape. A white blood cell which is found in human body is another example of a single cell which can change its shape. But while WBC is a cell, white blood cell is a cell only. On the other hand, amoeba, which is also a single celled organism, it is a full-fledged organism, and amoeba is capable of independent existence. Now we come to the next question, multicellular organisms. Organisms which are made of more than one cell. Multi means many, cellular means cell. So all the organisms which are made of more than one cell are called multicellular organisms. All species of animals, land plants, and most fungi are multicellular. These are the photographs of a few multicellular organisms. The number of cells in multicellular organisms may range from a few to billions. The number of cells being less in smaller organisms does not in any way affect the functioning of the organisms. It does not mean that small organisms has less cells, so their functioning may not be proper. The functioning of the organism remains okay. In case of smaller organisms, cell may be less. In case of large organisms like elephants, the cells may be more. All the cells in a multicellular organism work in coordination for the proper functioning of the organism. Now, this is an important point. The lifespan of a single-celled organism, that is unicellular organism, is short. Lifespan of a unicellular organism is short because the load work they perform, because all the functions which are required for the functioning of the body are to be performed by the single cell. While in the case of multicellular organisms, there is division of labor. We will also discuss what is division of labor in the coming slides. So, as there is division of labor in case of multicellular organism, the lifespan of multicellular organisms is longer due to the reason that different cells carry out different functions. Now, we will understand the difference between the unicellular and multicellular organisms. In case of unicellular organisms, the number of cells is single. In case of multicellular organisms, organism consists of many cells. In case of unicellular organism, size of a single cell is larger. In case of multicellular organism, size of cell is smaller. Unicellular organism has single cell, so all the life functions are performed by the single cell. That is, function of eating, reproducing, waste removal, and moving are performed by the single cell. So, in the case of multicellular organisms, specialized cells perform different life functions. For example, nerve cells. Type of role. Cell has only one role as an individual. In the case of multicellular organism, each cell has dual role as an individual cell as well as a part of community. Workload on the cell in case of unicellular organism is high. In the case of multicellular organism, workload on an individual or a single cell is very less. There is no division of labor in case of unicellular organism, whereas in the case of multicellular organisms, there are different cells which perform different functions. So there is division of labor in case of multicellular organisms. Survival capacity. Death of the cell results in the death of the organism because there is a single cell in case of unicellular organism. In the case of multicellular organisms, as you know, there are a large number of cells. Death of a few cells does not result in the death of the organism. Cell replacement. There is no cell replacement in the case of multicellular organisms. Old and weak cells are continuously replaced by the new ones. Examples of unicellular organisms are bacteria, amoeba, yeast, etc. In the case of multicellular organisms, some bonsai, animals and plants are the examples of multicellular organisms. Now the question arises, what is the shape and size of cells? The cells of different living organisms may differ in shape and size. As you know, organisms may be divided into two types on the basis of number of cells, that is unicellular and multicellular. A unicellular organism like amoeba has no definite shape and keeps on changing its shape. Within a multicellular organism, as you know, there are a large number of cells. For example, blood cells, muscle cells, nerve cells. Some of these cells are long while others are short. You can see these are long, these are short. Some are circular. You can see here, these are circular. These are red blood cells. These are nerve cells, and these are muscle cells. Some of the cells are oval. Shape and size of the cells are related to the specific function they perform. As you see in this picture, nerve cells are long and they are branched. These are branches for transmission of signals throughout our body, as they have to transmit the signals. On the other hand, muscle cells are small and spindle shaped, you can see here, which help in the movement. Components of the cell are enclosed in a membrane. This membrane provides the shape to the cells of the plants and animals. As you know, that if you now have seen the cell, suppose this is the cell, this will be known as cell membrane. But if you talk about plant cell, we have talked about this is the plant cell as well as animal cell. But if in case of plant cells, there is another covering outside here. This is known as cell wall. Cell wall is not found in the case of animal cells. Cell walls and additional covering over the cell membrane in the plant cells provides the shape and rigidity to the cell walls, to these cells. The size of the cells in living organisms may be as small as a micrometer or micron, or may be as large as a few centimeters. The smallest cell is in bacteria and the largest cell is the egg of an ostrich. We may think that if the size of an animal or plant is big, it will have in a large size cells. This is not true. The size of the cells has no relation with the size of the body of the animal or plant. It is not necessary that the cells in the elephant may be much bigger than those in the rat. The size of the cell is related to the function performed by the cell. For example, nerve cells both in the elephant and rat are long and branched. They perform the same function, that is transferring of messages. Now the question before us is division of labor in multicellular organisms. As you know that in case of a unicellular organism, that is a single celled organism, there is only a single cell which performs all the functions which are required for the body to perform. For example, eating, moving, excretion, etc. But in the case of multicellular organisms, there are a large number of cells. So, there is division of labor in a multicellular organism. You can compare this with a shop in which there is only an owner and he himself is working and providing the service to all the customers. On the other hand, there may be a shop in which there may be a large number of workers and all the workers are providing different types of services to the customers. Some may be involved in providing computer service, other may be physical delivery, other may be involved in storing of the things. In the same way, in the case of multicellular organisms, there are large number of cells and the different types of cells are performing different functions. Now we come to the main question. This means that different parts of the human body perform different functions. The human body has a heart to pump blood. A human body has a stomach to digest food and so on. Similarly, division of labor is also seen within a single cell. We are talking about multicellular, a cell in the multicellular organism and not within a unicellular organism. In fact, each cell has got special components which are known as cell organelles. The cell organelles, as you know, they may be lysosomes, ribosomes, vacuoles, nucleus, and others. Each performs different functions. Each kind of cell organelle performs a special function, such as making a material in the cell, clearing up the waste material from the cell, and so on. A cell is able to live and perform all its functions because of these organelles. These organelles together constitute the basic unit called the cell. If you have seen the cell, this may be the cell. We may be talking about animal cell. There is nucleus. There may be endoplasmic reticulum. These may be smooth or rough. There may be lysosomes. Then there may be ribosomes. There may be Golgi apparatus. And this is the cytoplasm, which is the liquid. So all these organelles together constitute the cell. This is the cell. Overall, this is the cell. We are talking about animal cell, which has lysosomes. In the case of plant cells, lysosomes are not found. We will discuss all these organelles in detail in the coming questions. Now, the question is, what is the structure of the cell? The cell has been taken from the Latin word cellula, which means small room. Cell is the basic structural and functional unit of life. If we see a cell under a microscope, we would come across three features in almost every cell. First of all, there will be plasma membrane. This is the outer covering plasma membrane. Then there is nucleus. And this is the liquid all up here. This is cytoplasm. This is nucleus. This is cytoplasm. This is plasma membrane. This is nucleus. This is cytoplasm. This is the liquid or gel which is filled in the whole of the cell, inside the cell. We can also say that the cell constitutes of three parts. Plasma membrane is also known as cell membrane. Nucleus and cytoplasm. All the organelles which are found inside the cell are found in the cytoplasm, which is a gel-like fluid. Within the cytoplasm lie extremely small but distinct structures called organelles. Some, such as nucleus, Golgi apparatus, are typically solitary, while others, such as mitochondria, chloroplasts, peroxisomes, and lysosomes, can be numerous, that is hundreds to thousands. Now we will discuss what are the cell organelles. An organelle is any structure found in the cytoplasm that has a specific form and function. You can see here all these, whether it is endoplasmic reticulum, whether it is nucleus, whether it is mitochondria or lysosome or Golgi body, all these are organelles. The name organelle comes from the idea that these structures are parts of the cells as organs are to the body. Cell organelles, these organelles, as you have seen, are membrane bound structures, that there is a covering outside them within a cell. In prokaryotes, the membrane bound cell organelles and well defined nuclear region are absent. That is, in the case of prokaryotes, membrane bound cell organelles, that the cell organelles which have covering and a well defined nuclear region is absent. On the other hand, in case of eukaryotic cells, they have nuclear membrane as well as they have membrane bound organelles. Some important examples of cell organelles are nucleus, this is nucleus, endoplasmic reticulum, this is endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi apparatus, this is Golgi apparatus, mitochondria, this is red color, given in the red color, this is mitochondria, vacuole. If you talk about the vacuole in plant cells, they have a large central vacuole. But in the case of animal cell, there may be no vacuole or there may be many vacuoles, but the size of the vacuole in the case of animal cell is small. Ribosomes are found in both in animal cell as well as in plant cells. They are important. They means cell organelles are important because they carry out some very crucial means important functions. They carry out very crucial functions in the cells. Some of these cells are visible only with an electron microscope. Large organelles such as nucleus, vacuoles are easily visible with the light microscope. Cell wall and chloroplast are found in the case of plant cells. These are not found in the case of animal cells. Chloroplast is what which helps in the synthesis of food as it contains chlorophyll. Cell wall is the outer covering outside the plasma membrane, which is not found in the case of animal cells. Here we are giving the photograph which is a animal cell as it contains lysosomes. Lysosome is found in the case of animal cells. Now we come to the plasma membrane. Plasma membrane, that is the cell membrane. It is found in not only in animal cells but also in plant cells. Plasma membrane is also known as cell membrane or cytoplasmic membrane as it contains cytoplasm inside. It has been named as cytoplasmic membrane. It is a biological membrane that surrounds the cytoplasm of a cell. That is, it covers the cytoplasm of the cell. It separates the contents of the cell. That is, whatever is found inside the cell, it keeps the contents of the cell. That is, plasma membrane keeps the contents of the cell separate from the material outside the cell. It holds the contents of the cell in place. This plasma membrane is semi-permeable and selectively permeable. Why? In that it can either let a substance pass through freely, pass through to a limited extent, or may not allow a substance to pass through at all. It is its prerogative on the basis of nature of the substance. Plasma membrane is called a selectively permeable membrane. Why it is called so? There may be a question in the exam that why a plasma membrane is called a selectively permeable membrane, because it allows only selected substances to enter and leave the cell. For example, oxygen, carbon dioxide and water. It prevents the movement of other substances. That is, it does not allow cytoplasm to flow out. That is, it may allow oxygen, carbon dioxide and water to come in or go outside the plasma cell. But plasma membrane does not allow the cytoplasm. You see, this is the cytoplasm. This is this color. This is cytoplasm. This color is cytoplasm. This is also this. This is all cytoplasm. This is the fluid which is found inside the cell. So plasma membrane does not allow the gel-like fluid, that is cytoplasm, to go outside the cell. In case of animal cells, plasma membrane is the outer boundary of the cell, while in the case of plants and prokaryotes, the outer covering is cell wall. Plasma membrane is found inside the cell wall. Now another question may come in the exam: what will happen if the plasma membrane ruptures or breaks out? You have seen this is the plasma membrane and this is nucleus, this is cytoplasm, and other organelles are found in it, whether it is endoplasmic reticulum or or this maybe the Golgi body or lysosome or ribosomes. If you see that this outer covering breaks, it breaks, what will happen? There will be free movement of all the substances in and out of the cell. As you have read earlier that plasma membrane is a selectively permeable membrane. It allows only selected substances to come in and go out of the cell. But if there is no plasma membrane, there will be the free movement of the things, substances to come inside the cell or go outside the cell. The contents of the cell, that is the cell organelles, whether it is nucleus, mitochondria, Golgi apparatus, vacuoles, and the cytoplasm will leak out and the cell will not be able to perform its basic functions. Such a cell with ruptured plasma membrane will die. Next, we may be also asked in the examination of what substances plasma membrane is made up of. The answer is plasma membrane is flexible and is made up of protein and lipid, that is fat molecules. We can observe the structure of plasma membrane only through an electron microscope. So, two important questions we have discussed in relation to plasma membrane. What happens if plasma membrane ruptures or breaks down, or why plasma membrane is known as a selectively permeable membrane. Now another question is how the substances move in and out of the cell. So let us see. Some substances like CO2, that is carbon dioxide, which is a cellular waste required to be excreted out of the cell, out by the cell. That is, there is no need of carbon dioxide inside the cell. It has to be removed from the cell. So carbon dioxide accumulates in high concentration inside the cell. In the cell's external environment, the concentration of carbon dioxide is low. As soon as there is difference of concentration of carbon dioxide inside and outside a cell, carbon dioxide moves out of the cell through cell membrane by the process of diffusion. Now the question arises, what is diffusion? We will discuss it in the coming slides. It is basically the passing of a substance. It is the process of passing of substance through the cell membrane when there is difference in the concentration of a particular substance inside and outside the cell. Then similarly, oxygen enters the cell through cell membrane by the process of diffusion when the level or concentration of oxygen inside the cell decreases. H2O, that is water, moves in and out of the cell by the process of osmosis. Osmosis is also a type of diffusion. These substances, that is H2O, move in and out of the cell from the region of high concentration to the region of low concentration. Now, another important question is, what is hypertonic solution? What is hypotonic solution? What is isotonic solution? And what will happen if a plant cell is placed in any of these solutions? We will try to find out the answer to each of these questions. So let us start. Movement of water across the plasma membrane is affected by the amount of substance dissolved in water. On the basis of concentration of solute in the solution, solutions are of three types. What is solute or solvent? Let us see that first. Solutions are mixtures composed of a solute and a solvent. A solvent is a substance that dissolves a solute, resulting in a solution. A solvent is usually a liquid. A solute is a substance which is dissolved in another substance. In the case of salty water, the salt is solute and water is solvent. We will try to understand the same with the help of an example. Suppose this is water. This is what? This is solvent, in which another substance will be dissolved. We are powering salt in it. Salt is solute. When the salt comes here, we mix it and the solution becomes solution. This is solution. So solution is made up of solute as well as solvent. So on the basis of concentration of solute, that is the what is mixed in the solvent, on the basis of the concentration of the solute, solutions are of three types: hypertonic, hypotonic or isotonic. Using these terms, whenever we use the term hypertonic or hypotonic or isotonic, we involve the comparison between two different solutions. That is, when we are talking about hypertonic solution, there must be some other solution with which we have to make comparison. If we are saying that he is 2 years elder, then what? Then his sister, then his brother. There must be comparison with another solution. Cells have a very limited range of conditions in which they can survive. If the conditions are too hot, too cold, too watery, too salty, too acidic, too basic, the cells cannot perform properly. So, we will find out what happens when you place a cell in a solution that is more salty, that is, concentration of solute is on the higher side. It is called hypertonic. Much more watery, that is, solvent is more, whereas solute is less. It is called hypotonic. Or where there is equal salt concentration, that is, there are two solutions which have equal concentration of solute, they will be called isotonic solution. So next, first of all comes hypertonic solution. And what will happen if a living plant cell is placed in hypertonic solution, and what do you mean by plasmolysis? So first of all, we will try to find out what is the meaning of hypertonic solution. A hypertonic solution is a solution in which solute concentration is high as compared with another solution, that is solution inside the cell. When we are talking about the cell, we will talk about what is inside the cell, nature of the solution inside the cell, and what is outside the cell. Here, when we are talking about hypertonic solution, we are saying that this is the cell. It has its own solution. There is solution outside the cell. If the solution which is outside the cell has more solute concentration, this is cell, and what is found outside the cell has more solute concentration as compared to what is found inside the cell, then this is the hypertonic solution. We remember that water molecules are free to pass across the cell membrane in both the directions. That is, water can come in and as well as can go out of the plasma membrane. If a living plant cell is placed in a hypertonic solution, hypertonic, that is, salt concentration or solute concentration is on the higher side, the liquid surrounding the cell has higher concentration of solute particles and a lower concentration of water as compared to inside the cell. That is, outside the cell, solute particles are in higher concentration. We can say that, in other words, for the purpose of comparison only, we are saying that the outside is more salty than inside the cell. Unfortunately, the solute molecules cannot pass through the membrane to reach equilibrium, but water molecules can. We have seen that the water molecules can come inside and outside the cell. In this situation, we have more solute outside the cell as compared to inside the cell. That is, if for the purpose of example, if we say that there is more salt outside the cell, then these salt particles cannot come inside the plasma membrane, though, because the plasma membrane does not allow each and every substance to come inside, but the water can. So more water leaves the cell then enters. So you will see here that cell will move outside. Because in the cell, concentration of water is more as compared to outside. So water will start moving outside. However, only a small amount of water will also enter inside. You can see here there is an arrow inside. So ultimately, as the more water is going outside the cell and only small amount of water is coming inside the cell, cell will shrink. We call this cell contraction plasmolysis. Another example, when compared to fresh water, seawater contains higher concentration of salt particles. As you know that the seawater is more salty as compared to fresh water. So the seawater is a hypertonic solution as it contains more solute particles. Freshwater fish, any fish which is found in the fresh water, cannot survive in the seawater. If you take a freshwater sea and put it in the seawater, it cannot survive because their cells would leak water into the surrounding salt water, because outside there will be more solute, there will be less concentration of water outside. So from inside the fish, the cells will start losing water to outside the cell, and they would ultimately perish from dehydration. Ultimately, the fish will die because of dehydration, as its cells will start oozing out water to outside. So now, what is the meaning of hypotonic solution? What happens if a plant cell is placed in a hypotonic solution? Hypotonic solution is a solution in which solute concentration is low as compared with another solution. Another solution means solution inside the cell. This is the cell. This is the solution outside. This is the solution inside. So here, what is solute concentration is low. Outside is low solute concentration. That is, there is less, we can say, salt or any solute which is in low concentration, but here the solute is in higher concentration inside. So when a plant cell is placed in hypotonic solution, here we have placed the cell in a hypotonic solution, that is, outside has less solute concentration. So in this case, the plant cell takes up water by osmosis. So here the water will start flowing from outside to the inside of the cell. You can see here, only a small amount of water will come outside the cell. Ultimately, what will happen, as the net result is more water enters the cell, the cell swells, cell becomes swollen. It builds a pressure against the cell wall. There is pressure on the cell wall. As we have told that plant cells have a cell wall. As the cell contains now a lot of water which has come inside the cell swells up and there is a pressure on the cell walls. In this way, the cell wall also exerts an equal pressure against the swollen wall. Cell wall also puts pressure on the swollen cell. In this way, the cell wall prevents the cell from bursting. Both tap and purified water are hypotonic. When a single animal cell, such as red blood cell, is put in a hypotonic solution, too much water rushes inside the cell. Cell will grow in size and burst. If we place the plant cell in the hypotonic cell, the plant cell will not burst, as there is cell wall and the cell will also exert its pressure on the swollen cell. But in the case of animal cell, there is only plasma membrane. There is no cell wall outside the plasma membrane. So when in case of animal cell, the animal cell is put in hypotonic solution, the water will start coming inside the cell and the cell will grow in size, and ultimately, as there is no cell wall outside the animal cell, the cell will burst. So the next question, what is isotonic solution and what will happen if the plant cell is placed in the isotonic solution? Isotonic solution is a solution which has same amount of solutes as compared with another solution. Another solution means inside the cell and outside the cell. The solutes are in equal concentration. You can see here in the figure, these are the solute particles. Only for the purpose of understanding, if you count these numbers, these are 4. Solute particles are 4. Inside the cell, solute particles are also 4. That is the concentration inside the cell, outside the cell. Solute particles are in same concentration. So this is isotonic solution outside the cell. If we are placing the cell in a isotonic solution where the concentration inside and outside is equal, the amount of water going inside the cell is equal to the water going out of the cell. So the net movement of water is 0. You can see here, this is water going inside. This is going inside. You can see here, this is going outside. This is going outside. This is going inside. This is going inside. Two sides it is going in, two sides it is going out. Net result is that equal amount of water is going in, equal amount of water is going out. Net result of movement of water is 0. So the cell, that is the plant cell, will neither shrink nor grow. It will remain of the same size as it is. There will be no change in the size of the plant cell. Here is an example of isotonic. Let us say you have 2 cups of tap water and one was in a big cup. If you are taking, suppose this is a big cup, this is small cup. The big cup of water has 2 grams of salt. This is water in which we have 100 milliliter of water. We have put in it 2 grams of salt in it. In the 200 milliliter water, we have put 2 grams of salt. Then we take some of this solution in this smaller utensil or smaller cup. We have poured this solution into this solution. So the concentration of the salt in the big cup as well as in the small cup is the same. There is no change in the ratio of salt as well as water. So this is an example of isotonic solution. Now take an example of hypertonic and hypotonic solution. Suppose you like to drink cold milk having 1 spoon of sugar. You like that milk is cold and it has only 1 spoon of sugar. When you do not put enough sugar in the milk, that is, you put only 1/4 of spoon of sugar in the cold milk, then it is hypotonic because it has less concentration of sugar and it tastes just cold milk without sugar. But then if you put too much sugar, suppose you put 4 spoons of sugar inside the milk, then it is a hypertonic solution because the milk is now having extra sugar. It is extra sweet. So when you put only 1 spoon of sugar, when the cold milk is neither too sweet nor too light, but it is good, it is equal, then it is an example of isotonic solution. It is equal, the taste is good, equal, neither it is too sweet nor too light. Next, now the another important process is diffusion. Diffusion is the process of movement of particles, that is solutes, from a region of high concentration to a region of low concentration. Diffusion is a passive process, that is, no energy is needed. Breathing in oxygen and releasing carbon dioxide outside the body during respiration is an example of simple diffusion. Carbon dioxide or oxygen moves in and out of the cell by the process of diffusion. So diffusion plays an important role in the exchange of gases and water between the cells as well as the cell and its external environment. You can see here that we have put purple color dye in a water. Here you can see this is in high concentration. Slowly this dye is moving, spreading from the high concentration to low concentration. Ultimately the whole of the water will become of purple color. Here the concentration was more, here it spread to other areas of water, then it spread to whole of the water. Now we come to the another process which is known as osmosis. And what is its significance? Osmosis is a process which takes place in liquids. It is a type of diffusion. The spontaneous net movement of water or solvent molecules through a selectively permeable membrane from a region of high water concentration to a region of low water concentration till equilibrium is reached is called osmosis. Osmosis is also a passive transport. It means that no energy is required for this process. Example of osmosis in our daily life is that plant cells soak up water. In this case, you will see that solute particles are in high concentration in here and there is low water concentration on this side of the jar. Here on this side of the semi-permeable membrane there is high concentration of water but solute particles are in low concentration. So what will happen that the water will start moving from high concentration to a region of low concentration. Water will start moving from here to here and ultimately the concentration of water in both sides of the semi-permeable will become equal. What is the significance of osmosis? It is very important for living organisms, unicellular freshwater organisms as well as aquatic plants obtain water through osmosis. Absorption of water by roots also occurs through osmosis. movement of water in and out of the cell occurs through osmosis. If you like our video, please like, share and subscribe our channel. Thank you.